G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. In the last quarter of the 20th century, no one would have believed that the advances of time and tide, the progress in preemptive police surveillance state technology would have advanced to the point where I could be told that in order to re-register my 1983 1.8 litre touring wagon, that in the interests of health and welfare and public safety and keeping of the peace, I must modify my vehicle in order to reduce the effects of its stealth configuration. That's what they said. My vehicle is too stealthy. Now, does this mean that the faceted aerofoil on the roof rack, the one that streamlines the electric solar thermal ramjet, which saves 33% of my fuel burn, does that mean that I have to remove this so that it doesn't reflect police radar signals off and out into the unknown and thereby shade my vehicle from the presence of the speed traps? No, not a bit of it. The reason I must modify my vehicle is the seditious stealth effects of the Scorpion Off-Road Products bull bar. That's what's got them all twisted up and anguished in their knickers. That's right, you heard me. When I took this thing in for a pre-registration check, they said you're going to have to modify the bull bar because, whereas once upon a time the test was your number plate must be visible and legible at the eyeball height of a police officer sitting in a patrol car 15 metres in front of the vehicle, even off unto one side. At 45 degrees to the vehicle's line of advance, the bull bar the number plate must be visible through the bull bar. Now, as you all may have picked up, there was a bit of a mistake in that previous paragraph, and that's because this is beer 3 in the attempt of a malt liquor video. So you're just going to have to put up with any untoward utterances. Malt liquor. But let's explainificate why it is that 15 metres was considered acceptable minimum distance to be able to read the number plate on the front end of a vehicle. It goes as like this. 15 metres is about 45 feet. Twice 45 is 90. 60 miles per hour is 88 feet per second. 100 kilometres per hour, the legal maximum speed on the highway in New South Wales, is 63 miles per hour. So if somebody is cruising up the highway at 100 kilometres per hour, then 15 metres, or 45 feet, is approximately half a second. So the theory is if the PoLice officer is standing on the side of the road holding a radar gun or a breathalyzer or whatever, and a car flashes past at highway speed, if he hasn't spotted the number plate or she hasn't spotted the number plate by the last half second to closure, it doesn't matter after that. And then if the PoLice orificer is in their patrol car cruising along the highway head on at 100 kilometres an hour mutual speed, then this 15 metres represents a quarter of a second. There's no actual serious point in worrying about what you can't see in the last quarter of a second when you're closing. That's if you've got a human Mark I eyeball at the height that it is when you're sitting in a patrol car. So, therefore, thus and because, the fact that when Mr. Subaru put the 1983 1.8 litre touring wagon together, the The fact was that the vehicle was fully compliant, as you can see by the VIN plate there. And back in those days, Mr. Subaru had the idea that all you really needed at the front end of the car was the number plate screwed onto the bumper bar to protect the pointy end. But the Australian importers, they decided that with the Antipodean incidents of roadkills and wildlife strikes on vehicles on the highway, anything with a plastic radiator grille and a plastic bumper bar was going to need somewhat more protection. So they contacted Scorpion Off-Road Products in Brisbane, and they had them design a custom bull bar which may be bolted directly onto the frame of the 1800cc touring wagons. And not only, but also in recognisance of the number of grass blades, long, and shrubs, spiky, which a low-lying four-wheel drive might be expected to traverse in Australia, the bull bar was specifically configured to protect the paint on the front number plate. But, well, it's not 1983 anymore, is it? 31 years down the track, and the technology has moved on somewhat. They no longer rely on a Mark I PoLice orifice's eyeball to tell you whether the car is registered according to the colour of the label on the windscreen. That went out last year, when they failed in 2013 to issue a replacement for the 2012 annual colour-coded windscreen registration label, which allowed the cops to sit across the intersection and decide, ha, that bugger hasn't paid his registration. And even if they have, they haven't put the new label on. So we'll go over and we'll pinch them for failing to comply with section tiddly-pom-poo of the Thou Shalt Register Thy Fire Chariot Act. Oh no, now they have much more high-techery. Now what they have, pointing to the right from the roof rack of the lollipop mobiles or the highway patrol cars, they have a camera. It's a digital camera, and they have another one of them pointing straight out to the front. And surprise, surprise, there's even another one pointing straight out to the left. And the theory is 6 times per second as the highway patrol car is driving up the road, these 3 cameras are feeding images back via a wireless satellite link to the police computer at the headquarters in Sydney. And that means that if the driver of the car, patrol car that is, requests, they get an email sent to a screen display on their dashboard, roughly where I keep a voltmeter in my vehicle, and the PoLice orifice's email display will tell them what is the address of the registered owner of the vehicle. It'll also tell them what the registered owner's conviction record and police charge record is, and as well as that, it'll tell them what work was required to be done on the vehicle last time it was registered. And so, therefore, to take account of the new paradigm of having preemptive surveillance cameras mounted on the roof rack of every police car, 15 metres away from the front is no longer considered an acceptable distance for the registration plate, the number plate, to be clear and visible. Nowadays, the requirement is that the front number plate should be visible from 2 metres away at the height of a standing adult, i.e. the height of the camera on the roof bar of the Highway Patrol lollipop wagon. Isn't that a hoot? My 1983 Subaru Scorpion Modification is too stealthy for the New South Wales PoLice to be able to cope with. Therefore, I have to modify my 31-year-old car. They're not going to give it a grandfather clause. Oh, it hasn't done anything wrong for 31 years, but you might go out and rob a bank tomorrow, you wicked, evil, potential sus-perp. Warbles on a lot, the suspect perpetrator. So yeah, I've got to modify my car because their stealth technology can't cope with a 31-year-old bull bar. What sort of little dick paranoid fantasia is that? And what are we going to do about it? Well, here's the plan, okay? We go over to the workshop at the TLAR School of Engineering, which would obviously stand for That Looks About Right. And over here we find that our stockpile of hard-edged, square, solid electricity, because that is what you get if you put enough amps into a bucket full of bauxite. Our solid electricity stockpiles have had to be reduced by a fair bit. We've fed the extraction through the ancestral hand tools. And here is what we've come up with. 3 pieces of metalwork fabrication. And they fit into the grand scheme of reassuring the PoLice of New South Wales thusly. We pick a shim, take a shim, any shim will do, and we place it thereabouts. We pick another shim, take a shim, any shim will do, and we place that one thereabouts. And then we take the specially fabricated squaring of the rotundity and would you look at that, it fits, Kimosabi, it fits. And then we're going to apply some clear tape to hold the bits in place, while then drilling of the holes and popping of the rivets in order to place a very carefully configured flat piece of solid electricity onto the welded round solid electricity bull bar. And then after that we're going to pick up that number plate and we're going to transfer it up to there. And then the paranoid PoLice orifice-ers and their automatic computerised surveillance cameras will be able to satisfy themselves at a digital glance that my vehicle is registered and that I am not, in fact, a devious, wicked, evil felon nor a threat to their paranoid preemptive society. But I would have to say, it gives me the shits. It makes me feel that the times they're a-changing. It's a sign of the times. It's an indication of the fact that I live in an increasingly obsessive, compulsive, anally retentive, overcompensated, inferiority complex driven PoLice state. But there's not a whole lot I can do, and I'm just happy that I can do this bit of the registration without having to pay somebody else to do it. But dear oh dear, imagine how insecure you'd have to be to come up with a regulation that says people have to modify their 31-year-old registered cars so that a paranoid police preemptive surveillance of the citizenry system is able to get a better look at their car in the last quarter of a second before they approach at highway speed. Dear oh dear oh dear. What a fucking pathetic world we're living in. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao. Malt liquor.